Okay, so last time we talked about like how to build a perfect Discord community, so to speak. Just to fill you in a little bit, since you haven't seen the episode, or for people that haven't seen the last episode or whatever,
Or didn't watch it because it was like 2 fucking
or
hours.
didn't watch it because it was way too fucking long, and we're still learning how to figure out like how to clip and trim, and basically I'm a retard. So the very first thing that I think the community, the Discord community needs is like the cause that we were talking about, right? Like that first cause um, that glue. I think we talked about how God is dead, so now you kind of have to need a new kind of why are we here sort of deal. And that goes to everything. That goes to us in life. That goes to us in our communities, in our societies, in the state, in our discords, right? It goes all the way down to the discord. Like, why are we here? And everything else kind of naturally flows from that, right? Um, or it should if it's well defined enough. That's my theory, right? If you define the cause well enough and you filter people through that cause, praxis should happen naturally, right?
Yep. The
Um,
problem
yeah.
is just like getting to that point and getting people on the same page anymore after like the death of the meta narratives.
Okay. Well, that's what I want to talk about. Practical shit, right? Getting people on the same page. Um, whenever there
Were
isn't
you,
a cause, like, what's the cause?
were either of you heavily involved? Because I think Discord replaced this with the age of internet forum.
Yeah, heavily
Um,
evolved, personally.
yeah, so that I kind of lament a bit the loss of the internet forum. It's still there. Well, I mean, it's still for niche communities. I feel like it's still there, but game developers in particular have decided to completely uh, they've decided to push their Discord as the primary avenues of
That's
communication, which is
true.
kind of annoying
That's
because if I
true.
want something answered, I mean they've inserted threads now. Um,
Threads are nice.
threads are helpful, but if you want to ask like a simple question like how let's take a video game for example, how do I do this one thing? You have to type it in and you have to bank on people being at their computers at the time to see that. Whereas if it's a forum post, it remains there. It might be bumped down a bit, but it stays there. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
in the Discord, you get back scrolled. And I'm thinking, I wasn't involved in or politically aware other than I was 13 years old shit talking the US as a British kid because British people love shit talking the US.
Yeah.
That was the extent of my forum political activity. But I'm wondering what either of you might think, perhaps more you, so Cypher, because you were around then, um, Discord versus an internet forum. Um, there's a lot of sort of like that comes out. I don't know. I don't even know what the term to describe it is. But with a forum, it's
Um.
not live, and then Discord is live, and you have to rely on people being in sync, and the kind of it's more like read the room.
Yeah. It definitely feels much more read the roomy, right? Like, I know at least me. I'm a huge proponent of 4chan, and not like the autistic threads of 4chan, like B and Poll and stuff like that. Like, I could care less about that stuff, but like the smaller, like more niche communities, in like VG for example, or Lit, where they come frequently to repeat, like to discuss a very specific topic. Those are great. Those communities are great. As far as like the Discord stuff, yeah, it feels almost like it gets like the Reddit syndrome or whatever you want to call it, where like people are worried that what they might say might offend somebody or might come across um, rude or something. I don't know. Like if you ever notice, like if you look at Reddit comments and then you look at like 4chan comments or something, they're like night and day, even if they're talking about the same exact topic. Um, because yeah, I'm gonna get downvoted to shit if I talk to somebody on Reddit like I talk to somebody on 4chan. With like racial slurs aside, like I'm not even using those on 4chan. It doesn't matter. Like just yeah, dude, you're an idiot. Your opinion's stupid, and here's why it's fucking stupid. Like, you can't talk to people like that on the internet, and especially like whenever you, or excuse me, on Reddit. And whenever you go to Discord, when it's like a community managed Discord, you can't talk to people like that either because there's people. Basically, the mods are fascists.
Yeah, I've basically abdicated my use, like, I don't use Facebook anymore because I try to make fucking just normal jokes that are
Normal
obviously jokes,
jokes.
and I keep getting fucking post blocked like all the time. And I think that this is a really interesting point that you bring up because it's kind of like with meta games that pop up almost unintentionally inside of systems based on how they're set up. And it's perfect for like social engineering because you can look at the different social media platforms and how they have just things like upvotes, like you mentioned, or whatever else.
Mhm.
And it completely changes the social game that you're
Completely.
playing in ways that are oftentimes completely unintentional. So just like you're saying with Discord or anything that's more live, like it's like you're joining in a conversation as opposed to like threads somewhere, even on Facebook in like group comment sections, you could write something, come back like 2 days later and follow the line of conversation and stuff. So that's exactly a perfect metaphor for like what I'm interested in with society is like how do you set up systems to where like the unintended side effects, the ripple effects, and like the easiest route for people, which is one of the things we talked about yesterday. You want to make the easiest route what you want people to do anyway. So they just kind of fall into the thing. So you have to think about those meta games and what the like second and third order effects of the way you're setting up the system. And that's one of the things that leftists fucking bitch about all the time about capitalism is the fact that it has like negative feedback loops of shit that's not necessarily good for society, right? So you have to think about, and talked about this last time too, but the cyber socialism and how they were trying to set up like a system, like a thermostat that was like self reinforcing, like a fucking thermostat. I can't think of the word right now, but like that's exactly what you have to do. Yeah. So you have to think about how you have the server rules set up. And if you're making a bunch of rules that are not really possible for people to follow easily, then you're just setting yourself up for failure. And if your mods are fascist. So you have to figure out like what are some rules that you think that you should have in a server or a society that should be just like no go? Like this isn't allowed here.
I'm going to backtrack, sorry, when you talk about the meta games, because the one thing I was thinking what you were talking about is the React system. You're talking about upvotes, but there's also stuff like
Yeah.
on Facebook with
React.
the laugh react. If the laugh react is not targeting a joke, it's basically a downvote.
Yeah.
Yep.
What that is, and that I don't know. Maybe you could have, if you want to talk about rules, you want to talk about maybe just completely abolish reacts, because forums back in the in late 2000 or 2000 late 2000 they didn't have any of that, and nowadays even some of them do, and that instantly colors how anyone approaches a comment or any piece of content.
That's a really fucking good point. I've never even
It
thought
is.
about that on Discord. Like, that's so. Because I just now thought about the last react I saw of on someone's like post that I maybe would have taken seriously on Discord, and then I saw the react, and it just like you said, it immediately colored my okay. This is stupid. Like, this is gonna be stupid.
It's
I don't
funny
know,
too, like
you can
people
turn
were
off reacts with a server. You can completely eliminate reacts.
Sure,
Ah,
in the
that's
theoretical
horrible.
server, it's fun. Reacts are so fun.
They
But-
are, yeah.
but
I like
maybe
that you can customize them on Discord. Like the thing that's funny that I've noticed on Facebook, this is kind of a random aside, but like when they first came out with all the other reacts, supposedly, and this may be an urban myth or whatever, but supposedly the other reacts, like the heart react and stuff, are better for the algorithm for your fucking numbers or whatever. And so people for a long time were shaming people who did just a like instead of like one of the other reacts. But now I've noticed there's kind of a reactionary movement where people are going back to only liking because like doing a fucking heart or laughing and stuff is like showing too much emotion and it's like not cool
my
anymore.
God.
So now it's like coming full circle. It's weird.
It's like being reactionary to the reactionary shit. It never stops. You never stop the reactionary movements. So you abolish reactionaryism, or whatever the fuck that's called.
Reactionaryism, yeah.
I like that rule though. I think that's a pretty good rule. Reacts totally add to discourse in that they add those subtle cues that you get when talking to somebody IRL, like when you can see their face. I feel like reacts kind of replace those, right? Like
Yeah.
um,
Definitely.
they add nuance to the discussion. They're completely worthwhile, um, but my God, if they aren't a little toxic, for
Well,
sure.
maybe you would have Reacts which like there's most. I'm not a Nitro user, so that makes me a fucking loser
I'm a Nitro
apparently.
user.
But because I see everyone like so many people use like the meme Reacts, and the meme Reacts don't seem to add any. They don't weight what somebody's. Well, I don't know. It depends, but like compared to like the basic React, like thumbs up or I don't know, because you used the Pepe Heart one.
Yeah.
I thought I had to squint at what that was. I thought that was just like a. I wasn't sure what that was. I thought that was a negative one at first. I wasn't sure. I thought it was Pepe like on the phone, like calling the police kind of thing. But I think those type of reacts maybe because you're right. They do add a lot when you have those. They're so broad and I don't know. They're very colorful, but
Yeah.
I think when you have a very limited amount, so that's maybe one thing Discord does better in allowing these unlimited forms of reacts.
So taking
Compared
this
to
back to like the social engineering aspect, I had a thought like if you want to allow people to like express themselves, right, in your
Hmm.
society because that's like keeps them happier, I guess you could say. There's one thing you
Slaves.
can do in Discord, which is allow people to only use Reacts from your server and not bring in Reacts from other servers, like maybe a cock cage from some fucking weird ass server they're in. If you don't want them to use that in your server, you can set it up to where they can only use yours, right? So you're allowing them a certain amount of free expression that you've predetermined is acceptable for your server. And that would be like the idea of expressing yourself under capitalism, right? Like everything is commodified, blah blah blah. We can talk about the fucking dress if you want. Uh the like everything is limited within what's considered to be acceptable discourse, and there's an acceptable amount of um anti-authority like rebellion that's also commodified. So that's something you could do in a server
Hmm.
and still like get people
All right, let
let
me let
people
me
feel
shift
like they're
topic a
expressing.
little bit. Just shift a little bit. Basically, just move the goalposts. Specifically, a philosophy Discord server. All right, because I do want to talk about setting up a space for people that want to have serious discussions, intellectual discussions, on the internet with like-minded individuals, right? Like sans memes. Um, but anyway, continue. Sorry, I just want to make
well,
sure.
no, hang on. You got me thinking. Unless Rumba wants to continue, I have a proposal.
All right,
Okay.
propose.
So going back to the meta of forum, Reddit, Discord, forums always posted in chronological order, and when you make a forum post, it's specifically uh you have to think about it, you have to edit it, you have to reread it because you're posting it there permanently, and it's going to be there in the sequence and stuff. It's not. I mean, it can sort of be back scrolled, but not compared to the insanity of a chat. I mean, that's the thing. It's a chat. Because people say, well, that's Reddit as well. Well, no, because Reddit arranges it by upvote by default as opposed to chronologically. Now, I'm pretty sure you can maybe change that setting, but you have to go into settings for that. And I've left my Reddit settings the default. You could, I don't know if this would serve the purpose, like a philosophy Discord, for example. You could use slow mode. Um, I don't know what the intervals are. I know slow mode you can do it like 30 seconds. I don't know if you can set slow mode, but say if you had a dedicated channel, so all on topic stuff is gonna be in this. So you can keep sort of off topic or like kind of side whispers, but like the main theater, the main agora where the on topic discussion is gonna be, you could have that in slow mode. Then, of course, you have to curate that people don't have side conversations in the other stuff. Like,
What about slow mode and then not slow mode in threads? Like you slow mode and then thread that discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That could also be an idea.
And unless slow mode carries over to the thread, which I would be
Well, that's
concerned that it would, because the thread's
it
linked
probably would
within the
because the
chat.
thread is connected to that chat settings, isn't it? Yeah. So
Which is something that we can think about at a different time. That's also like just kind of infrastructure. So getting away from maybe infrastructure, um, because infrastructure is probably the least interesting part of this discussion.
right.
Here's probably one of the more interesting parts of the discussion. Like, do you ban horny posting or do you have a designated horny posting zone so people can get it out without having to go elsewhere?
It's all dudes in this Discord except for you, Rumble, right? Actually, no,
Well,
that's not true. I invited a couple of friends, but they're not into that. They're not into that.
I think you ban horny posting altogether. This is not the place for
Yeah,
horny posting. If they want to go, if
that's
they want to horny post, go somewhere else. It's Discord. There's a
that's
million
what people say,
there's a
but
million
like
horny posting
there
sites.
are, yeah, but people fucking want to horny post even in the philosophy
No, they
servers.
just
And if
want to
you try
troll.
to
Hang
No,
on.
they want to fucking horny post, they want to troll, they want a place within the community where they can do it. And I feel like it's better if you like contain that in like
Yeah.
a channel.
Yeah,
What is
a
okay?
different
So
channel.
No,
A
on the
different channel.
server,
what is
same
horny
server,
posting?
different
Why?
channel.
Why does every server need its own little NSFW?
Because otherwise people will go elsewhere. They want to like if you make a place too stuffy, then one, it makes it like uncomfortable and people get like nervous about being open and fucking talking about shit.
Okay,
Hang on.
hold on. Hold the fucking phone. Look, if someone wants to come in to our very serious philosophy Discord and fucking talk about wanking off or something, right? Like, dude, have some fucking willpower. Go.
Sex related shit is still philosophical.
Yes,
You're
and we
saying
can talk about that.
Diogenes can't you saying Diogenes
Like,
can't be in your fucking film?
We can talk about the
philosophy
philosophy of
server?
sex. We can talk about sex and its implications. We can talk about shame. We can talk about kinks. We can talk about all that stuff. Maybe have a dedicated spot for that. That's NSFW. But no, I don't want to see anybody's feet pics.
Hang
You
on.
know,
I
on
need.
my.
I need.
Nobody
hang on,
wants
I
to
need.
see anyone's feet pics ever.
I need context for what horny posting look because most of my discords are associated to a certain game, which are all so it's all G rated there. So there's no horny posting. The other one is the other discords I'm part of is Final Fantasy 14 discords, where people I don't know if this will classify as horny posting, and I don't get too much off topic here, but they post pictures of their characters.
Cat girls, like the
whatnot.
small cat girls.
Well, we like stuff like that. There's so much mods for 14, and they post that kind of stuff. So that would probably be the expression of horny posting in the Final Fantasy 14 community. What is horny posting look like in the general Discord ether? What does that
That
look like?
depends, because you can limit it. You can say like no porn. That's a pretty normal thing. Like no nudity, no porn, but you
No
still
word
have
porn.
people
You know what?
just
I remember back during the days of Eve. So we're talking. I'm saying that late 2000s, early 2010s. It's mostly like Gen Xers who play it, and they'll all like share like gifs of like stuff. Yeah.
On Eve
so
Online?
It's just a new name of stuff. Like
Yeah.
in the chat, they'll just post like
Yeah.
some sort of GIF.
Yeah, my
I
first.
completely distanced from that, so I completely forgot that was a thing. And you're talking, remember you're talking like you're fucking crazy, and I'm like, no, wait a minute, this is. Oh, I totally
not new
recall
yet.
all that. Yeah,
It's not
people
new
just
yet.
post sex gifs like all the fucking time.
My
yeah.
first.
That's still most servers have a sex gift channel. And
Like my
Oh,
first
fuck, okay.
sexual discussion with a girl that I think was a girl was RuneScape. In the DMs, like just ERPing and RuneScape for probably like 3 months straight. You know, like this is my girlfriend at the time, like 7th grade maybe, if that.
You're peeing in 7th grade. Okay, yeah, go on.
It was my environment, man.
Okay, I didn't ERP until I was 18.
What? Okay, well that's a whole nother discussion entirely. We can
Oh, yeah.
psychoanalyze you later. Okay, so sure, I think there should be a designated NSFW place for like philosophy that concerns sexual topics or taboo maybe topics or something that I would be in trouble for if I was browsing Discord at work, which I don't know if you could ever get in, like, if you could get away with browsing Discord at work. Maybe that's the first problem, but you know what I'm saying. Sure, that should have a place, but that doesn't mean that you horny post. When I think
No, no,
horny
I
post,
disagree.
It's so interesting. We have two dudes arguing against horny posting, and then like
it's because women.
Well, it's not.
Oh, never mind.
It's not even for me. Like, I don't generally horny post. It's just I'm looking at it from a social engineering perspective. You have to have, if you want to build a community
Like
where
event
people
space?
actually continue to come back, yeah, you have to allow a certain amount of shit posting and horny posting, or else you're just going to be
Okay.
fighting a constant battle and hemorrhaging people who would have good discourse, but you've kicked them out because they also like to shit post and
Okay,
horny
I like
post.
that idea a lot. Okay, but let's check this out. Let's analyze shit posting for a second. How many shit posters stay in the shit posting containment zone? Fucking
I mean,
none of them.
that's not
That's
true.
why they
That's not
shit post.
true.
They want to come in and they want to shit all over the actual discussion.
Well,
Because
that's
it's
not
funny.
true.
It gets
That's
more eyes
lumping a
on.
that's lumping a large amount of people together.
Right,
Like
I'm
full on
generalizing shit
trolls,
posters.
yeah. But there's a lot of shit posters that like will keep it contained and still contribute to the discourse.
And I guess that's kind of goes back to something we talked about last session was like, should there be, I think that maybe there should be like a buffer, like a pre-buffer of, hey, show us that you're serious, and then we'll let you get away with as much shit posting and trolling as you want within reason, right? Like, okay, show us that you're not just coming here server hopping, horny posting in our super serious philosophy community, right? Like, but what does a pre-buffer look like?
I don't like that idea either because there's just from like a psychology perspective, there's so many people with like contrarian personalities that like to come in and initially be um caustic, I guess. And it's almost like you have to earn their time, like I don't know. It's kind of it kind of comes down to like a self-esteem thing a lot of times. Like they initially want to try to make people not like them. So you have to like get through that initial shell. And then once you do, then they're actually like really cool. And I've met so many people with that personality type. And if you have like a buffer at the beginning, then you're just setting that bar to where you never get any of those people.
Sure, but at the same time, you can meet a whole lot of cool people that you don't have to jump through hoops for them to be cool. Like if you're
Maybe.
not going to be mature and just be like that kind of person, okay, grow up. I don't. Yeah, I could
Maybe, but
entertain it.
you're limiting your cognitive diversity then though, because you're like a lot of traits are shared, like personality traits and stuff like that. And if you narrow it down to a very specific, well, it's like the fucking I don't know if you learned about this, but the AI continuum, the adapter and innovator side, like it's just one of many like billions of fucking stupid personality tests or whatever, but like
Yeah, yeah, I'm an innovator. I remember this. I took this
yeah.
thing, and I'm not an
Yeah,
adapter at all. My whole class was adapters.
yeah, so
Like,
if you're in an environment with a very rigid structure, then that naturally filters out a lot of the people who are more on the innovative side of the
That's fair.
spectrum.
That's
And then
fair.
you end up with people who all think generally the same just by the nature of the system that you've set up. So if you like are completely removing all of the front-loaded contrarians, then what other conversational and intellectual traits are you filtering out by accident?
and okay, I'm gonna ask in terms of this. All right, so this use the term, horny posting, contrarianism, caustic. I know I'm not, of course, acquainted with the philosophy ether of Discord, but in terms of horny posting, is there any sort of like gender split in terms of who is posting sex gifs?
I can.
This
I have a.
dude.
I have a
Posting the
wild
sex
guess. I have a wild guess.
But I mean, like, would you make if you want to, bring in people into the Discord community who are pretty, let's say, I don't say normal, but like not big into the Discord meta, like they're not into the wider community. They just have a Discord account. Because I can tell you the
Normies.
couple people that couple people that I introduced to this Discord server are pretty sort of straight-laced or straight-shooting people.
Yeah, you are
They're
straight
not going to be
laced.
acquainted with a concept of like horny posting or things like that,
Yeah.
and they are going to be very alienated by something like that. So it depends what kind of audience you want to cater to. That's sort of the Reddit, 4chan, the online people, or the people who are primarily offline that have a slight online presence.
Hmm.
So
Can you not
because
do
the
both? I
whole
feel like you can do both.
the whole posting sex gifs is a very primarily online type of thing to do. The people that I brought into this group is that the two of them are primarily offline, so they're not going to have that sort of cultural acquaintance.
Yeah, I
with.
think just straight up porn and like nudity wouldn't be allowed. Like, that's not really what I would mean by horny posting in that context. If you have a server where you're trying to have some kind of goal
Right.
or whatever.
So what in your vision, what would horny posting look like in this sort of server?
I don't know, it's hard to say because it would really be combined with shit posting, and a lot of shit posting just like has sex elements in it, but just not straight up porn.
So you're talking about like a Facebook meme level of sex joke that most people might share.
Maybe. I think it might just be best handled as far as infrastructure is concerned with like an opt-in shitposting role. Like you opt into, do you want to see this channel?
Most of them do that.
Or do you want to see like
Most of them
these
do
several channels of curated whatever the fuck you're looking to shitpost about? Like, okay, well here, pick the role.
Sex gifts is of course its own channel.
Not in the philosophy
Sex
Discord
gifts
group, but in every other
from the
Discord
2000s.
group, sure.
Yeah, because so that's the thing too. Like, if we're talking about a lot of the shit that I'm saying about allowing horny posting for cognitive diversity or whatever, like that applies specifically to a philosophy server. Like, if you're trying to have a server for fucking Animal Crossing or even like politics, then there's not as much impetus on you to have that cognitive diversity because philosophers are fucking crazy and retarded and like really fucking weird, and you need to be able to have the weirdos in there to have good discourse. But again, epistemological anarchist,
Can you explain
that's
that?
why I have that viewpoint. Sure, why
Yeah,
not?
I
I would
like
love
that.
to explain that.
Please do.
So Feyerabend, he writes about epistemological anarchy. It's just like a way of approaching information where I don't want to say it's like relativistic, but he does have some level of skepticism of like the scientific method in general and like scientism, you could call it. And it's just the idea that you need to allow freedom of thought and ideas and exploring in all different directions because you never know exactly what's going to pan out. Like, if you look at a lot of the smart people in history who came up with some really cool shit, they were also into like fucking alchemy or phrenology or like whatever else weird shit, and then they just happen to pan out with certain things. And his big example that he goes through is talking about the Copernican revolution and how we like to think that the church was this huge oppressive thing that was saying like, no, the fucking everything revolves around the earth or whatever. But it's not actually accurate to the way that everything went down. Like, when they were first using telescopes to look up and try to figure shit out, all their readings were fucking wrong. They were all over the place. Nothing was making any sense. Like, it was kind of just a few people were like, I think that this is the way it is, and I'm just gonna go with it, and I'm gonna like find the evidence that supports my position. And that's pretty much the way that science has gone. And that's not ideal, but that's like, it's still functional, and you shouldn't limit off like different ways of thinking and figuring stuff out, because only negating things in science is like limiting, I guess. But
Well, first of all, I want to bring up an anecdote about what that might look like in terms of day-to-day interactions. However, this isn't related to what we're talking about social engineering. So we want to. I do want to bring up an example of what this might look like.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, 2003, I was 13 years old, or around that time. I was going through confirmation. I was raised Church of England, which is basically English Catholic. And I was going through the classes for you to be confirmed so you can take communion. I remember very, very specifically, we're talking about Jesus in our classes in the evenings on Tuesdays or whatever. We were talking about Jesus's miracles, and this was around the time the Patrick Stewart sort of X-Men trilogy was very popular. So and this is I feel like this is very epistemologically anarchistic. But I brought up, because I was very into the X-Men movies, I brought up the idea of maybe Jesus was like some sort of next evolution of he was like a fucking mutant. And the priest was very gentle about this. But looking back, this is a class of like fucking 10, 20 people. I feel like they went, well, who's it? This guy's fucking off his rocker. Like, this guy's fucking retarded. I know we talked about that word.
He's
but
the Ubermensch.
Felt like that was definitely felt like that was what was happening in the room at that moment. As a teacher, I do get very sort of far when I'm talking about history to particularly my ninth graders, because they're like just straight out of middle school. They come up, a few of them, and they do a couple, at least one of them does have, I think he has an IEP for autism. They do come out with very far out, like completely random sort of questions about a topic. But to me, I could see where they are going with that, and I can see the connection to the topic. Because I was once there. But to everyone else in the room, and not even 99% of the people in the room, it's like, this guy's fucking bananas, or like, it doesn't make any kind of fucking sense. And it's like, it socially ostracizes a lot of people. It quickly boxes you in to being that weird kid. Is that an example of epistemology? What we're talking about?
Yes.
I feel like, oh, it is. Okay, because there were a lot of people like that. There were a lot of people like that, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that's super, like, that kind of line of thinking is super useful. But that doesn't mean that, okay. Like, you welcome those ideas. Okay, well, hold on. You accept those ideas. But I don't know if you just welcome far out shit all the time. There's a line there, right?
Is there?
I don't know. Like,
I mean, this is a modernist take, maybe.
I always fall on the bad side of free speech, and like it's definitely, there are some good critiques of free speech, and
Free
like
speech's dumb.
and depending again on what your purpose is, like if we're talking about a country, like there's very good reasons to limit a lot of fucking speech. If you're talking about, okay, here's a take for you. I don't think that the average person should have like complete free speech. I think that like you can have epistemological anarchy in a subset of people, because I don't think that any people are necessarily, and we talked about this last time, you pull 100 people off the street and you put them in charge. Like, I don't think they're necessarily any better or any worse than any other random 100 people. I don't believe in like the great man thing. Like, if you empower people, they can do whatever. So if you have a ruling class that is allowed to have fucking philosophy Discord servers with horny posting, then they could get just as much done as if you allow everyone to horny post, but you can still control your server. So mods can horny post whatever they want, and then you limit the plebs to like not being able to be in certain rooms or not being able to say certain things.
All right, castes and classes, right back to it. All right, we talked about this last time.
I'm going to back up to the idea of free speech, because, at least to bring the historical perspective of free speech, is because free speech, at least from my understanding, or my reading of history, as it were, was exclusively dealing with, I can say whatever the fuck I want about the king, about the priest, about the church, about the state.
But those
it was never originally about, I can say the N-word, or I can't say the N-word, boo-hoo, where's my free speech? It was specifically about that. Now, of course, that's easily debunked by the idea that definitions change. and and terms change. But are we talking about, so what kind of free speech are we talking about? I mean, I imagine you're talking about
Sure, let's
the
define it.
second thing.
Sure, let's define it because yeah, why you said definitions and terms change, but that idea is the same idea. Like the term has now encompassed multiple ideas or a wider idea, but that same idea of like protesting, maybe those in power that hold power. I think that's still the relevant way to say is free speech, or like the I don't know what kind of free speech are we talking about? I guess like is slander
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
For the ruling
Slandering.
class, just like full, unbridled, complete free speech. For those lower down in the system, then you get to the point where you only allow the reacts that are from your server for those people. But then the higher castes can use any reacts, including the Hitler feeding Kirby whipped cream react, which is a thing that exists. But,
Can we add
but
that to
yeah,
our
I
server?
think you just have, yeah, I can add it. We have the
So what's
commodified.
what's
You have
the consequences for a ruling class member for saying, is there some sort of like ostracization? Are they
So
ostracized?
they can
Are
say whatever
they?
the fuck they want,
Yep,
wherever they
they can
want.
say whatever they want because if they like overthrow themselves, the ruling class is still the ruling class. Like if they come up with a better system, that's the whole idea. They should be coming up with a better system. They should be subverting and like changing things and
Okay,
making shit better.
but a ruling class being put in that position infers that, or informs maybe, that there is a class above the ruling class in order to place them into that position, right? There's no
No.
power. It's not like some
Well,
will to power shit. Like, oh,
it
I'm
is
just
some
going to
will to
will
power
to
shit.
rule. I'm just going to take
That's
these
exactly
mod
what it
privileges.
is.
Yeah, but we're talking about the internet right now. I can't just mod myself.
You can. It's called creating a server.
I'll take my own fucking community. Yeah, but we're trying to limit that, right? We want to make the perfect place for discussion. We want to bring people in. We don't want to ostracize. We
Yeah,
don't.
no, they're all still like full. The problem, okay, so here's the reason because obviously that's not utopian. Like, what we should be striving for is a society where everyone is equal. The problem is that that doesn't work. So, the alternative to having that like caste system that we talked about is having like more people having a say, which it very quickly degrades. Like, democracy leads to complete inaction. Like, if you have ruling by committee, then you just end up with infighting and like nothing ever gets done. So it's not that that's the best system. Like you want to have all of your people empowered. The problem is that's not practical. So how do you get there? How do you build a better society and how do you have a functioning society is really the fucking baseline. Like how do you even have a functional society? You have to have um some kind of, I don't know, you can't have fucking democracy or like complete um diffusion of power or
So we've
whatever.
had, I guess, with that, we've only had maybe 3 states, and this I'm just coming up. We've only had 3 states of human existence. We've had village. There's just terms I come up with: village, urban, and industrial. Industrial being urban plus, driving to work, taking public transport to work, that sort of thing. And we can only base our experiences off of those 2 to 3 arrangements that humans have been in. We only know how humans respond in a sort of pre-industrial village context, and we only know how humans respond in an industrial/urban context. What I'm talking about is, it is a classic. Oh, democracy works in small villages, which is probably debatable. And then as we move more and more advanced, the more alienated we become from each other. So we can get into the topic. So you say, it might not work, the pure equal society, but we've only seen humans arranged in those systems. What if you took? How do you replicate the intimacy of a village experience for humans in a sort of in an industrial setting, which is what we are in now? Is that possible? And I think that's the main argument against sort of anarchism, against direct democracy. Even I myself have trouble with anarchism. Strangely, when I was at the airport and I was watching some of the ground crew and realizing all the systems that are required to keep that airport running, you can't have a fucking neighborhood council running an international airport. This is a tough one.
You bring up a really good point, because that's something that people have been struggling with for a long time. Like, we evolved in small communities, right? We have the ability to recognize like 100, couple hundred people. Like, that's part of the reason why we gossip, right? So we gossip because people's reputations are important. Like, if you look at game theory, you have I can't remember the name of it now, but like basically the fool me once, shame on, have a George Bush moment. Like,
I remember that.
if you we only have so much ability to recognize people and be able to trust them. So the way that you're able to trust people in a larger society and like scale that up is through ideas like religion, nationalism, stuff like that. So you can immediately recognize people that are on your same wavelength. And then also through like gossiping, but that's not super scalable. So that's kind of what China's trying to do with the social credit score thing, is to build something that's scalable so you can have large groups of people able to still like function together. And they've been pretty much like way ahead of the power curve on this for a long time, because that's literally what Confucius was doing too, with his like concentric circles of like how you look at different layers of connection as like family and getting larger all the way up. You have to have some uniting force, which if it's not a religion or a king or whatever, like whatever it is that holds people together so they feel as though that they can trust each other. And I think that the social credit system is like, obviously there's issues with it, but that's one way to tackle that issue and like help people to be able to function large scale when our brains aren't really meant to be in groups that large.
Okay.
That's interesting. That's like actually, we should ban that. We should ban using the term "interesting" as a response to each other. That's it. Yeah, because the reason I said that's interesting because it's the first time someone might sort of clutch, at least me, who follows very normally leftist spaces. It's like a Westerner talking good about the social credit system. It is the foreign devil. It is the idea is that yellow peril stuff that the West likes to engage in with a social credit system. So that's okay. That's something I didn't even.
Yeah, our uniting force is shit flinging. If you didn't know,
right? That the ideas of scale is what we're talking about. Yeah.
So that kind of begs me back to the beginning of what's the uniting force of a philosophy Discord server? Why are we
Build
here?
a credit system. Yeah.
Exactly what I was going to say then. Well, shall we try a social credit system?
Yeah, and then that's how you differentiate. Like, people get more ability to express themselves until they eventually reach mod position with their social credit
Sounds
score.
suspiciously like karma and upvotes. If you have a certain amount of karma, now you're a mod.
No. That's democracy again, though. You're letting everyone upvote on shit. You've just created populism, and that's fucking retarded. No,
okay, so where do they get the
ruling class decides.
So we decide who gets the karma.
Or from the algorithm. You build the fucking all-knowing, all-seeing algorithm.
The algorithm is very interesting.
It's in me.
The next thing, and I didn't want to get too far out with our topic.
No, let's get
in terms of our social arrangements that we've been in. What's the next one could be? Well, what happens if we just run by AI? And I'm talking about sort of AGI, not algorithm, which is AI, whatever, like AGI. Once we're run by AGI, but I guess having an algorithm that governs a Discord social credit system would be sort of close to that.
That's the goal.
No.
That's the goal.
Run by AGI, I would.
That's what, like, for all of society. That's the fucking.
It's already being ran by the algorithm.
Well, that's a different.
We're just
algorithm.
abstractions on top of the algorithm, but that's a whole other topic. I would call it Brahman, right?
I thought this conversation too just not palpable for regular thing, but The thing about ideas of humans being run by AGI is that I don't have to fucking worry about this shit anymore. Just fucking later.
No, that's weak sauce. That's
Exactly.
fucking weak sauce. All right. Let's get practical, people, and get off the fucking AGI. What's the uniting thing? We can't have a fucking AI or AGI, whatever the fuck that stands for.
Artificial general intelligence. It's
Okay.
what sci-fi confuses as AI. AI is like Netflix trying to find out your taste. That's AI, or like video game AI. AGI is self-replicating. And it's
Okay,
actually
sure. I'm
yeah.
tracking.
Anyway, go
So you just let the ruling class decide.
All right, so
If you
let's,
don't have AGI.
in a metaphorical scenario, let's say that this perfect philosophy Discord is our Discord, all right? The seat of pseudology Discord, because it's right here. It's practical because I control it, and you control it, and he controls it. So we can exert control over it. How do we implement a credit system? What gives us the right?
Yeah, hang on.
Our
Are we going?
server.
I'm gonna back up. Rumba. Isn't this the same as in the Soviet Union, where you would advance in the Soviet Union? For all its merits, one of the biggest critique of the Soviet Union was it was based on nepotism. What's the
Yes,
difference
it was
between
based. Okay, so nepotism is a really interesting
Agreed.
point that you bring up. So that is one of the things that comes up in this kind of system is nepotism, and there's a couple ways to go about it. You could say that it's worth the risk, like that's an acceptable amount of some like just shit that's in the system, or you could go the fucking like genetic route and say maybe the people who are more inclined to be good in those leadership roles, maybe there is a genetic factor where nepotism could actually be beneficial.
Sure, but let's
Obviously,
figure that out
that's
first.
not the case all the time. But regardless, with my theory of the pulling 100 people off the street and putting them in charge and that being better than the alternative, it really doesn't matter whether they're related or not. If it's nepotism, like eventually if somebody's really shitty in charge because they're like just the son of a son of a son of whoever and they're just a really shitty leader, that's one of the beautiful things about having like a distinct ruling class is when the king sucks, you chop his fucking head off. You can't be mad at your neighbor when you're voting and like shit is just shitty. Like there's such a diffusion of responsibility. If you have nepotism getting people in like the seat of power and then they're just like awful at it, you just fucking murder them, like literally.
I have a good idea. Secret ballots. Alright? You take the ruling class, you take the sub ruling class, whatever the fuck they're called, maybe patricians, and then you go down to the plebs, right? The classes all get to vote secretly on someone they want to ostracize from the class. That's the way that they can kind of govern themselves.
There's an episode of Community where they implement a social credit system in the school, which if you don't know Community, it's Dan Harmon. It's the same guy that does fucking Rick and Morty or whatever. But like it's a really good episode and they have like a social credit system and people are like voting for the people who are above them and stuff and hilarity ensues. But yeah, I'm not a fan of any sort of ballot or voting or even secret voting in general.
Why not?
This is people are gonna, if they see this, they're gonna accuse me of being an elitist. But yeah,
Yes.
elitist. I don't know. It's hard and that's why I kind of stopped. It was hard identifying as an anarchist and also being an elitist. And that's mostly my upbringing, privilege, going to one of the higher universities and being indoctrinated in the whole liberal sort of institutionalism. But yeah, democracy. I don't know. But then there was a time where I thought that education and democracy go hand in hand. So if someone's educated to a certain level, you can trust them with democracy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, in my case, it's not even elitism though, because I don't think necessarily that any people are better than any other people. I just think having people with concentrated power is better than not. It doesn't matter who those people are. I don't think that there's a specific race or class or group of people that would do better necessarily at that job than anyone else. I think it's just better to just shove someone in that spot, make them do it. If they suck at it, we kill them, and then we just keep like going that way. Because I think that you're right. Like if you have a democracy, if you have full on like enlightenment values, then you have to have the education to go alongside that. And I don't think that we're necessarily there yet for practical purposes. And I also don't think that that kind of diffusion of responsibility gives the best outcome for the society. I think that even with the bad that comes with concentrated power, like I think that it's a net good when compared to. But you're right, absolutely. If you had that democracy, then education would have to go hand in hand with it.
That was
And
exact. That you said enlightenment. That's exactly why the founding fathers didn't allow women
exactly.
or
It
slaves
wasn't
to
even
vote.
meant to be like actual fucking like full equality because that doesn't function and they knew that too. They weren't trying to set up a system like what we're trying to do today. Not that
Different for
that
that.
appeal to authority means anything anyway because they didn't have any special knowledge by setting up that system to begin with, but
Just
yeah.
just to clarify for our viewers, of course. They believed back then they excluded women and slaves because they had the incorrect notion that women and slaves were less educated. I mean, they were less educated.
They were less educated because of them.
Because yeah, so it's a sort of cyclical thing, but it's the same type of reasoning. You don't let people who aren't educated, and doesn't matter who they fucking are.
Yeah.
You don't let the uneducated have any sort of sovereign power. So so I think people are uncomfortable with that idea because of that history, because it has been connected to sexism and racism.
For good reason.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. And that's so, but I think we can talk about we shouldn't have democracy without education. Now, they get to make it that everyone can access this education, everyone can pursue that education. But otherwise, if you don't go have a rigorous political philosophical education, just fucking shut up and let everyone else do the governing for you.
Okay, but
Yep.
see, here's the thing, right? Like, just a few critiques that come to my head immediately, and hopefully they're shitty critiques, so you can just kill them immediately too. Like, who determines what the fuck like a good education like that looks like? Like, I would consider the education that we have, like a typical Western education, especially at least public schooling, fucking like it's just shitty. It's really good for mass like job creating people, right? Like it's really good for that. It's really bad if I want to be like a philosopher king, right? Like the one-on-one or like one with a few students for an extended period of time in the forests, like that based, like Vedic shit. That's cool. That's the good for the philosopher kings, right? But like, what about all this? How do you determine we have to have special schools, right? Like we'd have to have like
this system assumes a radical change in how society is arranged, which would also include a radical change in the educational institutions that you are talking about anyway. So that critique is just not relevant, I guess. Sorry, but
No,
like
no,
Not relevant to
what
mine
I'm
either,
saying is
'cause
that
I don't want democracy.
yeah, you're right. I mean, you're right in the sense that we can't have what we're talking about with the current education system anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So in this new evolutionary system, you wouldn't have you would
Right.
have. But yeah, like that gets into the state of education. Now, university is a fucking job school now.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like
Yeah.
you might have to edit this bit out. But in terms of our topics and our 20 minutes, are we aligning with that? I don't know.
No, not at all. But kind of at the same time. I have ideas. I have timestamps written down. Not a big deal. Not have to write this timestamp down. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we wanted to bring it back to like the servers again, if we have any kind of final thoughts on setting up.
We
servers.
still cannot figure out, or rather, we get so sidetracked so quickly.
The Discord comes back to a voluntary association thing, right? I think it is acceptable for the three of us, and by the three of us at this time, I mean the two of you, and I'll be here going thumbs up for the time being until I get more free time. Because this is voluntary association, I think it is acceptable to have a triumvirate run social credit system, and if people don't like it, then they can just make their own, they can leave Discord. Since we were mixing in this topic about a Discord with society in general. So
Yeah.
let's not worry about society in general. We're talking about this voluntary Discord that you can be a part of.
Yeah.
Um, That's
So
what I know.
that get like the question. Maybe the question was a shitty question, and that's why it hasn't been answered. But I think really we just keep getting sidetracked because there's too many interesting things to talk about, like
That's the
in
essence of
tangents.
that's philosophy's middle name. It is sidetrack, isn't it?
Yeah. So just we'll have to talk about it next time or later on today. But um, like, what's the ideal? Like, what do we strive for? What's the common pull for? Like, why do people voluntarily associate to begin um, with us, or this metaphorical like ideal intellectual space, quote unquote?
So
Why are we there
perhaps
to begin with? Just to do this? Because that in my mind, no. I think it should be completely practical.
this might be a cart before the horse situation because the only people we invite right now are our friends. So it might have to be something that's more
This
more
is
liquid.
completely metaphorical. Like we're talking about we're speculating here. It's not about
Right.
our Discord.
I don't know. Well, for me, my gut instinct is to react to that as the Discord grows. That might piss people off as you change and mold things on the fly. Makes it seem like you don't have like a clear vision. Makes it seem like you don't know what you're doing. Um, but if you wanted to setting things out as a vision from the start, at least in my experience, um, it never it never works out 100% the plan anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you're
So
not planning. You're just creating a new god, right? Like, why are we here?
I think there's a couple reasons why the metaphor keeps breaking down. A, we're talking about a philosophy server, and then we're trying to scale that up to like society as a whole. But I think that the philosophy server would be more like only what the ruling class can talk about with epistemological anarchy, and like everyone else would have completely different servers, not just a different role within this server. They wouldn't even be in this server. Like a just general discourse server that has nothing to do with philosophy specifically would be a much better metaphor to talk about this, because if we're narrowing it to a philosophy server, the rules there are going to be wildly different from what you would have for just general
Yeah,
population.
sure.
So it doesn't really work in this context. In talking about like different levels or different like servers, or like what he was just talking about with voluntary association, if you have just this server is for the ruling class, then that's fine. And then you have separate servers that have like their own things, and people can, depending on their social credit score, maybe get into your server, but like they would have their own server.
So you have a hub. You have like a server hub.
I actually think it would be very interesting just for the fuck of it to actually seriously consider implementing this social credit system just to see how it actually works. Like a pure experimental. You're just talking about these different hierarchies of. You literally list the servers in hierarchical order, right? So everyone starts in like
It's the
the bottom
seven
channel,
heavens.
right?
How much?
And I would be very curious to see how that would work and how you could actually.
I built something similar to that in another server that I'm in, but it doesn't have enough engagement to actually function how it should. But basically, when you join, you get just like access to very basic roles and stuff like that. And as you progress, you get access to more and more channels with more and more roles. But the roles still don't actually give you any other like permissions or anything. They're just like purely something to strive for. But every time you unlock like a new thing, and it happens by itself, like the more you engage you get more points, but also like you can be given points by the moderators. And in this server it's like corporation themed, so you can work, you can do your job and like gain points as well, and then eventually unlock like more roles.
Can work on the
But
internet.
unfortunately there's like nobody really engages in that server, but you can set up shit like that with the bots. Like it's and you could base it on whatever kind of system you wanted. But it's kind of how I've always ran my servers, is with just an arbitrary system, and then based off of people's engagement and stuff like that, and off nepotism. Like I'll just move them up or down the kind of hierarchy, and people seem to function really well when they have some kind of ideal that they're striving towards. And if you can compartmentalize that into chunks so that people never feel like a small fish in a big pond, they in their one little worthless lifetime can make it from the bottom of this little part to the top of this little part. And that's still just like one of millions of fucking little things, but they feel like they've made progress. So that's how you keep people controlled and happy.